Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Okay, I guess we are live. And welcome to another edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buck What You Heard. And I have my special guest, Peter Blake, former co host of Buck What You Heard. He's doing his thing over at Bucks Report. You can find him on Facebook at Bucks Report. And you can
That's
follow him
right.
on you can follow him on Twitter as well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. Just trying to test this out right now, see how it sounds and see how we're coming through sound wise. But of course, we're on Bucks Report and on Facebook. Join the 63,000 following we have here on the sports web, the evolution of sports talk television. Let's do some sound tests here on this commercial and see how it sounds really quick. All right.
All right, no
Stand by.
problem. Yeah, it's a little bit low.
Yeah, it is. And what that is basically, we're trying to test out that sound through the third party, which is um, XSplit. So,
Okay.
yeah, and that's
Well,
disappointing.
yeah, well, it's back to the drawing board. That's the art of going live, and you live by the live and you die by the live sometimes. So,
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
what do you think about some of these games that we have coming up here? You've got the Titans and the Atlanta Falcons. The one thing I've noticed about this week, and I'm looking at all the records, there are a lot of people that are 1-2, a lot of teams that are 1-2 right now,
And
and
a lot of people would think the sky is falling at this point, Gene, especially with the Bucks doing the Bucks shows that we do here on Bucks Report. Um, yeah, I mean, look, the Cleveland Browns are 1-2. That's the team that really sticks out to me, and they're going to be facing Baltimore on Sunday. So that's a big game for Cleveland. You had the Philadelphia Eagles go into Lambeau Field and beat the Packers, with the Packers looking undefeated with a great defense, and now they've saved their season. So when there's a lot of fans out there and a lot of national pundits that say they don't think the Tampa Bay can go to LA and beat the Rams, it's hogwash. You're exactly right. The NFL right now is very open. You have a lot of injuries. A lot of injuries are going to most likely, hopefully, not happen, but it's a part of the game on
yeah.
Sunday. So it kind of changes the landscape. And you look at the NFC South with the New Orleans Saints going into Seattle, even with Teddy Bridgewater. Now they're going to face the Dallas Cowboys. You have the Carolina Panthers. You have the Atlanta Falcons, and of course you have the Bucs. So you're exactly right. The whole landscape of the NFL right now is it's open. Besides maybe New England and Kansas City,
And
and
and I
even the
and I,
Chiefs.
I want to jump in here real quick. If you think
Yeah,
about it, it's a three. You've got a three-way tie with three teams in the NFC South that are 1-2. Keep in mind, Tampa is the only one out of the three so far with a division win. So that's a positive. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, that's not a positive. That is a positive because those division wins really count for something, especially as you get into the middle of the season and the back end of the season.
yeah, no, absolutely. You're exactly right. So, um, it's a long season. I do think these teams do have a chance, but they have to play their game, and they, of course, have to avoid the injuries. But a lot of big games this week, and I know you're looking at this Rams game, and the big time matchup for me has to be Aaron Donald versus this offensive line of the Bucs, who running wise has done a really solid job, but passing wise, that's where you kind of get a little bit scared. Can this offensive line hold up versus the Rams and Aaron Donald and Clay Matthews, who had 2 sacks last week versus the Browns?
Yeah, again, I went back and watched the all 22 on the game, and I don't know. I'm waiting for Byron Leftwich to do some things, to do more. I guess. I felt
Right.
like the Bucks kind of took their foot off the gas in the second half. I could be wrong in how I'm viewing that, but I expected more. I expected them to play like they were playing from behind. The history of the Bucks. That's kind of how they should be playing, is if they're playing from behind, even if they're leading, because we've seen time and time again where they have a lead and they're unable to sustain that. So another, that's kind of another thing that we have to look at. So a lot of great games coming up this Sunday. One of the games that I'm really looking forward to is that Houston versus Carolina game is going to be really good. Uh, a lot of interesting things coming out of Carolina. We're talking about the division and Cam Newton and how Cam Newton kind of hid his foot injury from the rest of his team. I thought that he came back too soon after the foot injury in preseason. I thought they should have held him out until he's 100%. And now we're looking at a Cam Newton that's out indefinitely. So it's a new look for the Carolina Panthers. They are going to have to depend even more on Christian McCaffrey and these young receivers that they have. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they're going to be able to do. The defensive line has been somewhat underwhelming to me for Carolina from everything that I've heard, in social media. You would have
Say
thought
it ain't so. Gerald McCoy's on that defensive line. I mean, come on. He has all that talent around him, Gene, and you're saying the defensive line is underwhelming? Wow. Because a lot of those guys on that line, McCoy, is seen his best days, and the Bucs knew exactly what they were doing. But you're exactly right. That defense has been underwhelming. And with Cam Newton and the quarterback play, I knew for me coming into the season, I never thought he was healthy, especially with the shoulder stuff. But now the foot stuff, and it seems like, the last couple of years here, Gene, these lingering injuries have kind of caught up to Cam Newton. And this is why you have to have a quarterback that can sit back there in the pocket consistently, because then once your body basically abandons you, which it looks like it's happened to Newton here the last couple of years, then your game starts to turn around. And I think right now,
as a head coach, I don't know if you're looking at the long game. I don't know if he's on the hot seat right now. Personally, I would have shut Cam Newton down until he's 100% healthy, whether it was the shoulder or the foot. I wouldn't have rolled him back out there because you risk a more severe injury, and then you lose your franchise player for a longer period of time. And, again, it could be some of the player. It could be more of the coach. I'm not sure. But, when you are playing with an injury, you put your team at somewhat of a disadvantage as well. And I know that people want to be out there on the field. You want to be out there for your team. But at the same time, you have to be healed. I mean, you have to be healthy to go out there and execute. And we've seen Cam Newton these first couple of games, and you just knew that he wasn't 100% healthy.
Yeah, no, you absolutely knew it. And you knew that there could be some cause for concern at this juncture because of what Andrew Luck went through. And now that Andrew Luck is retired, you kind of wonder if Cam Newton is going to get that sense of basically eventually calling it a day because of all these injuries. How serious is that foot injury? It's a Liz Frank, which is a weird name, by the way, but it's like a mild sprain or something, like a fracture of the foot, which will hinder him from being able to be mobile, which is what his game is. And then on top of it, he has a new throwing motion. You watched him against the Buccaneers, and you saw a quarterback that not only didn't look that confident, but also didn't look that accurate.
Yeah, and again, I wonder, is he 100% healthy? Is that shoulder? Because there were rumors of shutting him down for the season just because of the type of injury that he had with his shoulder. And then, you see him come out, and he performed pretty well until he got injured in preseason. So, again, they have to let this guy heal until he can get out there at 100% and be productive with this team. And, until then, you don't know what you have with Carolina. I know they have Christian McCaffrey, which the guy is a physical freak, just what he's capable of doing. And he's always capable of breaking open that big run. So they do have that. And again, you hope they can, when you're looking at this team and from that fan base, you would hope that they could get this stuff together as the season progresses. So again, you don't want to overreact, but just right now, what we've seen is not what you kind of heard about in the offseason.
Somebody says my grandma called asking for her scarf back, Cam. I think, honestly, I think his dress has been, probably, I wouldn't say impressive. I think that's what more people are trying to focus on more than his game at this point. And here's a player in 2015 who led the Panthers to the Super Bowl with 50 touchdowns as an MVP.
Yes.
And he looked like a shell of himself versus the Bucs. So you kind of wonder going forward, is this team better off with Kyle Allen? What did he have? 4 touchdowns last week versus the Arizona Cardinals. But now you talk about the Texans, and let's talk about their quarterback situation, which it seems like it's getting a lot better with, I don't know, it's kind of crazy getting an offensive line around him, which, by the way, gave up 62 sacks last year. They seem like they're improved. So now you have Deshaun Watson able to basically have room to operate. That offense is always explosive with not only Watson, but also one of the best wide receivers in the game in DeAndre Hopkins. And then, of course, on the defensive side, you have J.J. Watt. They got rid of Clowney. It seems like the defense is still going. So the Texans could definitely be a contender. I think Carolina's going to have their hands full, and they're about to get a reality check big time versus that Texans defense and that rookie quarterback in Allen.
Yeah, again, he was pretty consistent from what I saw from him, and he played a lot better than you thought a player like him would come in and do. So I'm happy, just kind of watching what they did. I was good with how he played. I think that he will be able to make plays, and again, as long as you can establish the run and get your tight end involved, you always have an opportunity to be in the game. So let's just hope that when we're watching this, we get to see what the Texans can do, because that's one of the teams that I've been looking at too. I've always been a Watson fan. I've been really critical of scouts and anonymous sources going out here questioning the abilities of some of these players when there's film on them and you can see what they can do. As Warren Sapp says, tape don't lie. And, these guys are going out here, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, players like this that are said, let's make them a tight end or a wide receiver or running back, but they're not quarterbacks, but they're going out and proving the critics wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you see with this Cleveland and Baltimore? What we're doing right now is kind of a test. What is it? A sports web edition of a Buck What You Heard here live on YouTube. We got to get you on Facebook, my friend. Get you on the evolution of sports talk television here pretty soon.
Yeah, we can make this happen.
Yeah,
I kind of like this. So you're live on Facebook right now?
No, I'm live on YouTube with you right now. But I tell you what, we could get something where we could go live on both. That would be kind of awesome, right?
Yeah, it would, man. I would enjoy that. Yeah, and you know what? And sorry, guys, I'm sitting here and I'm totally not checking the chat here, and I guess I'm slipping here. Sorry. Yeah, the chat.
That's all right. It's like the old days again. I mean, we used to do this when we were first starting out. You had your podcast, and me, I was doing my stuff on YouTube. And now I'm on Bucs Report and by the way, you're also on Bucs Report Podcast Network, along with all the great Bucs podcasts on there. Well, we used to do this back and forth. I remember we used to go 2 hours. People go, "What are you guys talking about?" Well, we're talking about NFL football and Bucs football. We're having a good time.
That's right.
What are you talking about?
We haven't really gotten to break a lot of these games down. And one game that I'm looking forward to, and I'm picking this as an upset, I'm picking Buffalo to beat New England.
Wow. I don't know about that. I mean, it's tough. Look, it's always trendy to look at these teams that are 3-0, and I definitely think Buffalo's on the right track with a young quarterback and a young defense.
I'm talking about their defense. I'm not even – we haven't even talked about that. I'm just looking at their defense, and I think they match up really good against New England.
Yeah. But there's a stat somewhere that says basically every time that New England, I think it's like 8 tries, that the Patriots face a team that's undefeated in their division, they always usually win. So
yeah, they're a dynasty. I mean, as much as people hate the New England Patriots, hate them or hate their fans, hate their coaches or whatever, you will never in your lifetime see anything else like what you're seeing right now. For this long a period of time, what they've been able to accomplish is unheard of. And you got to factor in free agency, because I know that everybody will bring up teams from the 70s and 80s and 90s or whenever, but they didn't have to deal with free agency. Free agency was not a factor. And for a team to continuously be this good on a high level, it's just mind-boggling to see that.
Yeah, it really is, and I think people should enjoy it, but then again, people will say, well, they cheated, they did this, but you have to enjoy it at this point. You have a quarterback who's playing at 42 years old. Why? Because the offensive line keeps him clean. You have a perfect coaching system at this point, and I actually think this defense could be better than it was last year with all the talent that they got on it. So I think New England again is going to be looking at that Super Bowl and looking at contention. But going back to this game, will Buffalo give them a good test? I certainly hope so. I
Yeah.
think NFL fans hope so. But until I see it, I'm still taking the Patriots. For me, it's chalk, and
Yeah,
you're going to
that's one of my upset specials right there was that Buffalo
okay.
game. Just because of how they match up with against each other, I think that this will be a closer game than what a lot of people are thinking. Actually,
Shooter's
uh,
not really concerned about that. He's actually concerned, Shooter and Stash. He's concerned about how many sex toys will be thrown on the field. That's that Buffalo Bills mafia, I guess, that fan base. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean,
I'm
that's
just
what we're
waiting to see
talking about.
who gets thrown through a table. We talk about getting thrown through a table. Buffalo fans will put you through a table, literally put you through one.
Yeah, you should be put through a table. Come on. This is what happens in sports and society. You take it to an extreme. You're throwing octopuses on there and throwing hats on there, and now we're talking about sex toys on the. You couldn't think of something else. I mean, come
I
on,
mean,
sex toys.
I like the part because they're jumping off of RVs and jumping through tables and stuff. I mean,
Well,
what?
they're getting ready for the launch of SmackDown Live on Fox on October 4th.
Yep,
like everybody else.
Yep, just you hear that glass break and you're just waiting for Stone Cold to come out there.
I mean, that's what I'm waiting for. And I see these videos of these people and they're just true to life. I mean, they're true to life of wrestling. Like they are wrestling enthusiasts. They're definitely respecting the game. I always love to see somebody get, choke slammed or power bombed. I just hope somebody has insurance on that person or they don't sue.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's on them if they decide that that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Matthew Kitchell says Rams suck, Bucs life. There you go, man. So, you can't. There's been a long-standing rivalry with the Rams. I mean, going back to the '70s, and the Rams were instrumental in the Bucs not going to the Super Bowl. So, this is one of those teams that I've never liked, and I'm always glad when they lose. I was happy when they had that long stretch of losing games, just because I don't like them, and I just don't like their organization. But that's neither here nor there.
The Rams. Let's face it here, okay? And Bucs fans out there, what you're watching is a test edition of the Sports Web and Buck What You Heard here live on YouTube, usually on Bucs Report. We'll get it up there. I got to get this guy on here one night a week on Facebook Live. He seems like he won't do it, but I got to get him.
It's gonna happen. It'll happen.
It's gonna happen next week, okay? And I'm telling you, it will, because I'm Peter Blake giving you something to think about. And of course, the man himself, Mr. Eugene Thomas, former co-host of his show, just good times.
Man. What was that, 2014?
2012, buddy.
2012.
I think it was 2012.
2013 Spreecast. That's right.
Yes. When I used to set up my table, and not a good table, like a dinner room table with no light at all.
Yeah, and I look like I was being held hostage in some undisclosed location too. So you're not alone, man.
You were doing it in your closet at the time. We were just starting out. We didn't get the advice of, well, you should probably set up your studio a little bit. No, man, we're gonna talk. It doesn't matter if we're in the outhouse or whatever. But you look at the Rams. And the history, right, of the LA Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this goes as far back, and this is how old I am, but I was about 1 year old when it happened. 1979 NFC Championship game, where the Rams come to Tampa and they shut out the Bucs 9-0. Jack Youngblood, plays with a broken leg. Let's go ahead and fast forward the clocks a little bit to 1999, the NFC Championship game, where it's 11-6. You have the next year, the 2000 Monday Night Football game, which could be one of the greatest football games of all time, if you're looking at it from Monday Night Football, from Bucs games, but just from pure excitement alone of how good that game was. And then there's been a history with the Rams always in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's a weird history and it's about to reunite here on Sunday versus a Bucs team that, let's just face it, they need a win here on the road in the worst way against the Rams team that's undefeated right now, coming off a Super Bowl appearance. So there's a lot here that is still in stake. The season isn't over, and the Bucs basically have to play their best game. And I think that starts with taking the pressure off of Jameis Winston with this renewed running game and Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber.
I've been real happy with Jameis Winston. I know a lot of people have not really been thrilled with what he's done. I think he's playing within the confines of the plays that are being called for him. Personally, Jameis Winston's been in this league long enough. I'd love to see him take control, audible out. I've seen some plays where it looked like Jameis wanted to do something and he kind of maintained his composure and either, took the sack or, took the hit or whatever, but he didn't go and kind of freelance like I would like to see him do. I just felt like they played, what is the saying? Scared money don't make money. And I felt
scared
like
money doesn't. You play to lose, or you play to lose, play conservative, and that's when you lose. And you have 6 straight run plays, and I get it. You're successful. You're running the clock, but goodness gracious, you have 3rd and 2. You take Ronald Jones out, who was probably the most successful
he
back.
Was hot. He
you
was
put
hot.
in Peyton Barber, right? You go from the hot hand to Barber, and then you have Jameis Winston, who's what? 380 yards or over 300 yards at the time. If he's your franchise quarterback, I put it in his hand. Play calling was a little bit conservative. Hindsight, it's 2020. You're going to look back at that game, and there's some people that say, well, the offensive staff doesn't believe in Winston. Well, to me, that's kind of dumb because then you have Winston throw a 44-yard bomb to Mike Evans and set you up for the field goal. You've got to make the field goal. And I was talking to Sebastian. I'm trying to think of his name at this point and can't.
Janikowski?
No, not Sebastian Janikowski.
I wish. That would be kind of
Santiago Grammatica.
Oh, I saw that. Go ahead.
Yes, talking to him about it, and he was going through the mental, and you have to have the mental, and he still believes that Matt Gay definitely has that mental capability to be the kicker of the Bucs. But there's a lot more into it. Taking the 5-yard penalty. I don't know about all that. That's on the coaching staff, but still, that's on your defense. That's not on Jameis Winston. That's on your defense. Your defense has a 28-10 lead. I get it. People want to say, well, the offense, they have to sustain some drives. Your defense has to make stops versus a rookie quarterback. And your coaching staff has to make better adjustments for that defense to be successful. And all that stuff didn't happen last Sunday. So now, like I said on my shows, you got to turn the page. And you have a Rams team which has Jared Goff and has Brandon Cooks and has Connor Cooper Kupp and has Todd Gurley, who definitely doesn't look like himself. And look, the Bucs defense has done a damn good job versus running back. So to say, look, the Bucs are going to get blown out, I think their defense can keep them in it. But of course, you're going to have to alleviate those mistakes. Winston had one. It didn't come back to haunt them. And your defense has to definitely start covering these wide receivers. They got a big-time matchup on Sunday. Make no mistake about it. And there is history there, like I said before, with the Rams, whether they're in L.A. or St. Louis, it's there.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to mention, too, these other wide receivers, not named Mike Evans, have to step up. They will have to step up. I mean, you've got Aqib Talib. I'm sure he'll be covering Mike Evans the whole game. And this is going to give other receivers, other offensive players the opportunity to come out and make some plays. And they have to go ahead and execute and make those plays. I like the progression of O.J. Howard. They were getting him more involved in the game. I was happy to see that. I wish that would have continued on into the 3rd and 4th quarter. Again, you should be playing with the Bucs history. They should be playing like they're playing from behind. They shouldn't be playing to get down to the last kick. They should have their foot on somebody's throat and going for more.
Yeah, I mean, 2 for 12 in their lifetime, or at the last, since 2011, 2 and 12 versus rookie quarterbacks. I mean, you got to correct that. And look, overall, like 43 and 86 lifetime versus rookie quarterbacks. But look, when you had that defense going in the right direction with Tony Dungy, it seemed like when rookie quarterbacks came into Raymond James Stadium, they didn't get out. Okay, They didn't throw for 300 yards. So you got to get that mentality back. And I think Shaq Barrett has done a good job. I mean, 8 sacks at this point. He's done everything he could, but it falls on your secondary, it falls on your linebackers, and of course, it doesn't help with Devin White being out. And I don't know how much of an impact, but your line has to get there more times than not. It can't just be Shaq Barrett. And then with that being also said, your secondary has to do a better job in
Absolutely.
defending instead of blowing coverages where, he had Evan Ingram going the first play of the second half. And then you also had Shepard, who had a big game over 100 yards. But look, our guy, Alex Fleming of Bucs Report, said it best. He said that, Daniel Jones will throw for 300 yards. Evan Ingram is a weapon. And the reason why he said Jones would do it because he has the mobility and because he's not just throwing to guys that are not professional wide receivers. He's throwing to guys, or he wasn't throwing to professional wide receivers at Duke, and now he's going to get the opportunity in a guy like Ingram and Shepard.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Danny Dimes was doing his thing.
Yep.
To be very honest, I just felt like the Bucs were not prepared. They didn't look prepared for him. And
Yeah.
again, that's just, it is what it is. We got to look past that game and prepare for this game against the Rams. And the Rams are beatable. You saw what the Carolina Panthers were able to do to hang in there blow for blow with the Rams. So again, and I've said this on my podcast even before the season started, I can't see a team on the schedule that the Bucs can't get in there and mix it up with, and they could potentially come out with a win. I don't see a team that's going to actually dominate the Bucs or anything like that as I'm looking at the schedule. They just have to go out one game at a time, play these games, and try to come out with that win. Everybody has to do better. Like last week, there's enough blame to go around for everybody, but there has to be improvement. There has to be adjustments. So execution is important, whether it's a coach or a player. Everybody has to go out and do their job and take care of their assignment.
Yeah, and I think it starts with, fundamental tackling. There were some missed tackles in that game. Mike Edwards made some good hits, but he also missed on that tackle with Ingram. So you got to make that tackle to stop that 75-yard play. If you don't, that's what happens.
Yeah.
So you definitely have to go back to the fundamentals. I know it was disappointing. I know there's a lot of Bucs fans that were disappointed. Wanted to get your
there are
thoughts
people that
on
have
this.
already written this team off, and they're looking at them getting the top 5 pick in the draft already. So if that gives you any inclination of what certain fans feel about it.
It's amazing, Gene, and we've done these shows before, how fans basically think the sky is falling, and I get it. It's a tough road trip, but wait a minute. Do you think the talent on this team is improved? Yes. Do you think the coaching is improved? I get it. They made some boneheaded decisions the last couple of games, or maybe not boneheaded, but questionable decisions that have kind of cost them some games that you can look back at maybe. Yes, but the coaching staff is far better the last couple of years than it has been. So if that's true, then eventually they're going to get this turned around. They're going to put it all together offensively and defensively, and they have that opportunity to do it against the Rams. But, you're exactly right. Like, there's a lot of fans out there wishing that Jameis Winston wouldn't work out. And if you say that Winston lost you the game, then obviously you haven't watched a lot of football. Here's a kid that was 380 yards of passing, 3 touchdowns. I get it. The interception wasn't good. It was the right play. It just was a bad pass. But there are quarterbacks out there, ladies and gentlemen, that are going to throw interceptions. Hello, Aaron Rodgers.
Hello,
on
Matt
Thursday
Ryan.
Night, Matt Ryan. Hello. I mean, there's quarterbacks out there. So what you have to basically look at is there's going to be good things. There's going to be bad things with Jameis Winston, but I think there's more good than bad there. And then on top of it, the one good thing besides Shaq Barrett is the fact that Ronald Jones, 80 yards of rushing. Is he going to be the starter? Or are they going to go with Barber again? But you're getting that running game going. So I think, that's going to definitely help your offense. And then you had the emergence of O.J. Howard. So, look, Mike Evans versus Aqib Talib, that's one of the matchups a lot of Bucs fans are looking at right now because Talib's a former Buccaneer, one of the top corners. Has he lost a step? We'll see. Did a good job versus Odell Beckham Jr., so that'll be a matchup to look at. Chris Godwin coming in here banged up. So O.J. Howard, once again, please stand up versus this Rams defense and show me what you got. Show me if you can make some plays, because besides last week, I think the season has been disappointing. But once again, it is early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, you got Matt Ryan with 6 interceptions and Jameis Winston with 4. And
Right,
nobody even commented on the 3 interception game that Matt Ryan had. I mean, it just was never it never even came up in conversation. So again,
right,
people are going to say what they're going to say. I'm not going to really get all bent out of shape about it. And you just hope that as the season progresses, your offense starts to gel and things start to progress, and that's all you can really hope for. I mean, nobody's going anywhere, so I mean, people can be mad and complain about all these problems that they're not happy with, but at the end of
right.
the day, these guys aren't going anywhere. So you either got to get on board or just kind of move on.
Well, somebody brought this up this week. I mean, did you think that Bruce Arians came back to the Bucs just because of Jason Light? No, he came back because of Jameis Winston. And do you really think a 60-year-old head coach wants to go through a rebuild with a rookie quarterback that's in the draft? I don't care how good he is. He's not going to come in here and not have some bumps. I get it. He's a quarterback whisperer, but honestly, think about this in terms of football. Do you think he came back to the Bucs to basically go through a rebuilding effort? And if your
No,
answer is no, then there's your answer right there that most likely Jameis Winston is either going to get franchise tagged or he's going to prove himself to be the quarterback that I think he is and that you think he is and that a lot of fans think he's going to be. There's half of that fan base out there that eventually he will be the starting quarterback and they'll have to make a decision. But I just think the whole deal of well, who are we going to draft in the NFL draft? I mean, you continue to go through this whole process of drafting a number one quarterback, changing general managers, changing coaches, and you wonder why you're where you're at this point. And this is why, because you're consistently dysfunctional and you've got to stop that. You've got to get consistent, keep the same coaching staff, keep the same GM in place, and also build around a quarterback, which, by the way, the Bucs as an organization seem like they fell at miserably in their history.
yeah, but again, there's a lot of football to be played. The one thing you can say about Jameis Winston, whether you love him or you hate him, he's your all-time leading passing guy. So it's no longer Vinny Testaverde. And I've had this discussion with people, and they're like, "Oh, well, you look at the history of Buccaneers quarterbacks." Well, yeah, let's look at that. And this record has stood for how long? And all these other quarterbacks have had opportunities to get in on that, and nobody's been able to do it up until Jameis Winston. So,
Sure. I mean, let's take a look. Let's take a look at those quarterbacks, Gene. You have Doug Williams, who played well, didn't get signed for 250,000. Of course, Jack Thompson. You have Steve DeBerg there, but how about Steve Young? Didn't build around him, got rid of him for basically nothing, went to the 49ers, learned, had something around him, and that's why he's been successful. You have Vinny Testaverde, who was successful when he had weapons put around him. You had Trent Dilfer, who won a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay with the defense that was stingy at the time. I mean, how many? Chris Chandler.
Chris Chandelier, yeah,
Traded a number one pick for the Colts. Didn't give him the time. And of course, there was some locker room stuff there. Just didn't work out. But the point is, you continue this whole merry-go-round of drafting quarterbacks and then expecting these guys to win on their athletic ability alone. That's nonsense. You have
yeah,
Tom Brady in the first 4 years, 92 interceptions, 92 touchdowns. Excuse me. It wouldn't be 92 interceptions because people will be calling him a bust, but 92 touchdowns, 57 interceptions. And yet you look at Winston, 88 touchdowns coming into this year with 51 interceptions. They weren't calling Tom Brady a bust. Why? Well, you had 2 Super Bowls. Okay, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is better coaching, better offensive line,
the
better
same
defensive line.
coaching. Let's
Right,
put it
the
same
same
coaching. Yeah,
I mean, you're going to tell me that Dirk Cutter and Lovie Smith are the equivalent of Bill Belichick? No,
no,
they're
not even
not. You're
close.
going to tell me that offensive line was good enough or that defense was able to stop people? 31 and a half sacks by an offensive line and 26 points a game that you're giving up ever since Jameis Winston is coming here as a starter. And you think that's quality? That's not all on Jameis Winston. That's a team effort. That's a team failure by the Bucs. They have to do a better job of building around a young quarterback. Just my
Yeah,
opinion.
most definitely. And I'm looking at his numbers, Jameis Winston's numbers, and then you look at a guy like Carr over in Oakland, and he just became the the leading passer in Oakland Raiders history. I think it was last week. And I look at his numbers. His numbers, for the amount of time he's been in the league, they're he's getting the same kind of grief over in Oakland. So I guess a lot of people don't look at the big picture, and you look at the coaching carousel that the Bucs have gone through. The fact that there wasn't any real talent coming with the new regime coming in. And again, I'm not making excuses, because this is the year they have to produce. And I understand that people are your expectations are high. They should be, because there's been enough time to get depth, to get players in here, and these guys need to come together and do what they can to win some of these games.
Yeah, and somebody says, after all that, Jameis has put up the best quarterback Bucs history, so he's legit. Anybody else that thinks otherwise needs to walk the plank.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say walk the plank, because I know there's a lot of fans that say that, but you really have to love the one you're with, okay?
Yeah,
love the one you're with. This is who you're with at this point. This is who the coach,
and he ain't going nowhere right now.
He ain't going nowhere. So unless he absolutely just falls off the map, and I doubt it. Look, you're going to get what you get with Jameis Winston. He's going to have some turnovers. He has to cut down on that stuff.
Yeah, he is a blessing and a curse.
Right. But again, at the end of the day, he's also going to make some plays, and your offense has to do a better job of taking him out of those situations where he has to throw 40 or 50 times a game. So what you're looking at on Sunday with this matchup versus the Rams, in order to counteract Aaron Donald, who's a beast and probably the closest thing to Warren Sapp, right? You got to counteract that. You've got to run the ball. You've got to take the pressure off of him. You don't want to get into a game where you're throwing 40 to 50 times a game. You don't want to get into a game where he has to throw for 380. He can, but then again, you're going to have some turnovers. And look, the Rams are very good against the pass. So we're going to see what happens on Sunday. It's going to be definitely a matchup to watch. And I'm hoping that the Bucs come out with the same mentality that they came out with the Giants and the Carolina Panthers, by having balance to their offense. Good run-pass ratio will help Jameis Winston in this offense going forward in 2019.
Yeah, and I really hope to see more of the tight ends involved in this offense to really keep this defense off balance. I think that's going to be huge. Again, like I said, everybody else not named Mike Evans really needs to step up and make some plays and really be consistent throughout this game. The drop balls, that hurts the team as much as, those incomplete passes are really hurting the team. So cut down on the penalties again, and let's see what we can do here and not hurt the team, but put yourself in a position to win.
Agree. Absolutely agree. So on that note, are we done with this test? We did
are.
A full-blown show. You owe me one on the sports web, so yes, I expect you to come on.
You have my word. Next week I will be on.
All right, can we get you on Monday?
Yeah, you can get me on Monday. Go ahead and lock me in there. I'll be on Monday then.
All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Monday at 10 o'clock, Mr. Gene Thomas of Buck What You Heard will be on the evolution of sports talk television. I'm your host, Peter Blake.
Giving you something
to think about. We'll see you later.
All right.